Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to Molten Modular DIY. Today we're having a look at product from Frequency Central. What is it? Well, it's a Eurorack module which is actually in an entire synthesizer voice. You've got oscillators, filters, VCAs, envelopes all packed into a relatively small space. It's an ideal sort of module if you want to expand into a small case and want to fit in the maximum amount of modular loveliness in the smallest space possible. Now, although the product is from Frequency Central, who hang out in Coventry in the UK, the kit was actually sent to me by SynthCube. Now, SynthCube are a DIY synthesizer emporium over in the United States of America, and they put together kits for all sorts of things. I mean, I bought the entire component part of the Decard's Dream synthesizer I'm building, which is like over 4,000 components, and I got that directly from SynthCube, and it came just as this has, which I'll show you in a moment. It all came individually labelled and in tiny little packets and organised and sorted out. It was just extraordinary. And so it's SynthCube that have provided me with this kit to show off how awesome they are at putting kits together, but also to show off this fantastic, I hope, modular DIY building experience, because it's almost an entire synthesizer, and that's very exciting. I haven't looked at this previously, I haven't taken it apart, I haven't watched any videos on how you build it. I'm just going to get stuck in and it will be as it is. I mean, that's the plan with these videos. It's not just a review of the building process, it's actually doing the building process to highlight the things that are easy, the things that are difficult, and to hopefully stumble upon the problems that people might have when they build it, so that I can highlight solutions and fix that for you so that it's an easier build for you when you get around to building it. So this is warts and all. This is not streamlined or photoshopped, or I mean, obviously I'm going to edit it down, so it's going to take me hours to build this thing, so I will edit it down as far as I can, but I want to show a genuine building experience of this particular project. But what I'd like to do is just give a message to my past self that's starting this build, because I'm at the other end. I've got it together. Look at that, I've got it together. I'm about to test it. Now, I just want to throw in the fact that it's quite a challenging build. There's a lot to it. It's quite deep. There's a lot to solder, and the build instructions and the kit that comes with it, they don't always connect up in the best of ways. So you need to take this slow, take it methodical, read the build documents, check it with your components. And this is the reason why this video has ended up being really quite long, because there's a lot in here and none of it is necessarily difficult, but there are some challenges in things you have to put together, things you have to create, and identifying components, because you're not always going to get a consistency between the build guide and what's in the box. But I have gone into ridiculous detail, so if you're building this fella, then this video is going to be enormously helpful. So let's get on with it. Well, front panel, starting off, as you can see, you've got VCO, VCF, envelope, VCA over here, or LFO, bit of noise, multiple outputs, octave switches, filter cutoffs, that kind of thing. Really quite exciting. A lot of stuff in here, and I imagine you can probably get all these modules independently from Frequency Central as well. I mean, I say that because there's multiple PCBs in here. Oh yes, there's quite a little bit of soldering to do, I think. So let's check out the kit. So as you can see under here, we've got the front panel PCB, I should think, and then this one that's the oscillator. That it says Raging Bull. I've no idea what that is. And this one doesn't have a label. No doubt these things will become obvious in time. So this is what I'm talking about when it comes to SynthCube. They put labels of everything that is in every bag. Oh look, except for that one. Well, they can't be 100% perfect, but look at this stuff. It's just beautifully done. Beautifully done. So I should have no bother finding all the bits that I need at every time. You know, it's labeled, it tells you what the resistor is. I'm not going to have to be measuring resistors or faffing around with color coding and that kind of thing. It is all here beautifully. I love that. That's just, you know, that's doing kits properly, that is. So my assumption from this point is that this is going to be easy. It's just quite big. It's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. I think there's a lot of time lapse going to be going on in this fella. Now the only paperwork it comes with is the bill of materials, which is this thing here, which can be helpful. I mean, you can go through line by line and cross off the bits that you've done. That can be good. But otherwise I'm going to be using the build guide from the Frequency Central website. Or maybe a mixture of both. Who knows? Let's turn on the soldering iron. Right, build documents. These are my favourite things. These are the things where I get to be a little bit snarky about how people make assumptions and how difficult it is to grasp these sorts of things. Now, if you're starting a build for the first time, I would recommend reading through the documents before you start. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to blunder straight in like some kind of newbie, because I find that's the best way to really highlight any of the information that's missing in a build guide. So we get a nice big list of materials, which is fine. I'm going to ignore that for the moment and get on with what they're actually talking about. So, product motherboard assembly. Solder all resistors. That's a good start. Solder all the IC sockets and the 2 capacitors. Now we're talking about the big motherboard, this one. So on Frequency Central PCBs, they like to put the value of the resistor on the board as opposed to a number. That's quite interesting. I mean, there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can have a list of stuff that says R1, R2, you know, names of resistors, and then those are put onto the screen print on the board, so that you can go R1, okay, R1, fine R1, what's the value of R1? It's a 100k resistor, right, get 100k resistor, put it in the right place. That's one way of doing it. Frequency Central have opted for the other way, which is to put the value of the resistor actually on the board itself. Does that make things easier or harder? I don't know really, but the beauty of it is I can just pull out a bunch of resistors from here because they're all labelled, find the right one and stick it in. Easy. Easy. So if I'm starting with all the resistors as it says, I can just get on. I stop procrastinating and just get on. So let's find those resistors. So I need, in this first bit, now is this going to show me what's in each one separately? No, it's just got the whole lot. Okay, in the bill of materials. That's not a worry. So now what I don't appear to have, which would have made things just that little bit sweeter, is that I don't have a list of what's on each of the board individually. So when it says solder all the resistors, I've just got to find all the resistors for this board with no indication of exactly which ones they are. So I'm going to start with, well, if I start I can start at the top left, or I can start in this middle bit, which seems good. So I need 100Ks, I need 4K7s. So let's find all of those bits first. So resistors. Okay, 220K. I need a 220K. 100K. 47K. 33K. 15K. 0.7. 1K. Right. I think that's what I need. I think I need all of those fellas. Right. Let's have a look then. So the plan with this is that I'm going to populate it with all of the resistors I've pulled out, and if there's any gaps, I'll have to go and dig around for that, of course, and add that as well. But that all looks relatively straightforward. I'll do that and I'll see you on the other side. Super. So that's the first bunch of resistors. I think I got them all, as far as I can tell. Now, I'm seeing a problem in my own organisation here. Had I found them individually in the box, taken them out, put the resistors on, and then put them back, they would still be in a beautiful order in the box. As it is, I've pulled them out and I've put them in a pile. Which, that's just going to make things slightly more difficult for me to find them when I need to get them next time. But never mind. All good. All good. Right, what's next? The IC socket. Right, so IC socket. I don't see... Oh, this one here. A little one, a little IC socket. Uh-oh. Yeah, looks like I'm going to be making some more headers and stuff at some point. That's always my favourite thing. Those are the actual ICs. Let's open up this in case it has the sockets all in here. Yes, it does. All right, we found them. It's in this bag. We found them. Right, cool. Keep that to hand. So we need a 4 and 8, an 8-way one just to pop in here. Make sure we get it the right way round. Right, I'll just do this one quick. Place something on top, turn it over, put a bit of pressure so that it's going to be relatively flat and flush to the board. And the cockerel's just woken up. That's nice. Just going to check that out, make sure that's flat. Yep, looking good. So now I can do the rest. Lovely. As ever, the idea is that you're doing the lower stuff first so that it's easy to turn over and solder. If you're doing higher stuff first, you're going to turn over and the lower stuff will drop out as you're trying to solder it. So you should always start with resistors because they're going to be the lowest thing and then build it up from there. That's the plan. So next we need to be doing a couple of capacitors. Now we have them here, I think. 100 nanofarad, and these are going to be wide, not circular ones, the squashed ones. So let's see what we can find. Now, one of the things that Frequency Central do is that rather than providing photographs of individual components, they give you a link to it on the bill of materials. So I've got 100 nanofarad there, times 8. If I tap on it, it should give me an image of what that is. Can you see that on there? So that's what I'm looking for, that sort of thing. Now that is extraordinarily helpful. I mean, a picture in the build guide would be useful because you might print out the build guide to do it rather than having it on a computer. But, hey, it's something, isn't it? It gives us a clue. Okay, I had a little bit of a problem in identifying the capacitor. And now I just said nice things about the Frequency Central build guide and how it links you to a picture of the product. There, let's see a picture of the product. So I was expecting something that looked like that. However, through the process of elimination, it has to be these, because there's only one line in the build guide where it says there's 8 of the capacitors. The only time there's 8 of them is when it's the 100 nanofarad, which is that picture that we saw. Now these ones here in the box are 0.1 microfarad, which is the same as 100 nanofarad once I wrap my head around it. It's just that they look slightly different, and I'm just going to have to go with that because these are the same value. It's the only one of which there's 8 of. It has to be those ones, even though the picture is slightly different. So the picture thing is great, but I don't know, the consistency. I mean, I'm finding in my experience of building various kits from various places is that there are inconsistencies. They do creep in, and that is something that we just have to kind of get over, because I mean, I'm not saying it's not an exact science, but you can have different sorts of resistors with different tolerances. You can have different makes of capacitors that look slightly different, but provided that the values are similar, they should be okay. So when you've got a bill of materials from a manufacturer who's producing the PCBs and the front panels, the person who then puts the kit together, like SynthCube on this occasion, or if it's in the UK, it's probably going to be Thonk, they put the kit together. And so there's a possibility of inconsistency between what the manufacturer is assuming is going to go in there, or what it was built with, and the actual components supplied by the kit maker, SynthCube, Thonk. That's not a terrible thing. It's not a design disaster. It's simply that you've got to think sometimes that it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be, and then you've got to wrap your mind around how it could be different, and is that a problem? Is the resistor exactly what it's supposed to be, or is it near enough to it to make any difference? And is that your responsibility to think about those sorts of things? No, not really. You just want to get on with it. So through process of elimination, it has to be these capacitors, and I'm going to go with that even though it's different to the picture that was linked to. Does that make sense? So all I'm saying is it's not a problem. Just sometimes it gets a little bit tricky, but it's only a little bit. Now these aren't polarized, so they just go in any old way round. So don't be afraid if something's not quite right. You just have to think it through and then go with what you know really in your gut must be true. Must be true. So that's those in. Let's get those soldered in before moving on to the next bit. Right, next off we've got to put the 8 metal shaft pots. 1, 2, 3. Oh, hang on. I'll have to find all the pots to see which ones have got metal shafts. And the 4 switches on the PCB fold over the mounting tabs of the pots on the rear of the PCB, then place the panel over them. This will ensure they're correctly positioned, flip over and then solder. So this is standard procedure. When you're putting knobs onto something, you put the knobs on, not the knobs, the pots on first, without soldering them, and then put the front panel on in order to make sure that they stay in the right bit. So let's have a look at all the pots I've got. So I need a 100K. So there's metal shaft B100. Okay, so that's got B100 written on it. B100K, B100K here. 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. Let's put those in to start with, because those are going to be right. Okay, I have to go the right way round and bend those pins. Now they've got nuts on, so I'm going to take those off, because I'm assuming that you're going to need to screw on the other side of the front panel. Now we have these other ones, so those are 100K, but they're not metal shaft. These are metal shaft, so there's 2 of those, 1 of those and 1 of those. Right, so this is 50K. Do I have a 50? Oh, I've got another 100K on there. Oh, have I done this right? I think so. There's more 100Ks. Oh dear, I'm confused. Right, maybe the front panel is going to help me with this. Maybe not. Place the 8 metal shaft pots and the 4 switches and fold over the things. But I don't know where they go. Okay, I've got a picture. Thank goodness for that. There's a picture further down. Right, okay. Saved the day. So where these should be is, there shouldn't be one there. Do have those 2. These 3 shouldn't be them either. Right. Okay. So the problem is that on the board you've got B100K labelled for lots of different places, and there's 2 different B100K pots. There's some that look like this, and there's some that look like this. So what we needed was a picture of the board, and that's what I found. So thank goodness for that. I should have just scrolled down a little bit further. So if you're confused by this, scroll down, there's a picture, and then this is how you're going to do it. So these at 4 are B100Ks that I've got here that came out of the bag. There's a B100K here. These, no, don't put them there. These two over here, yes. And then I've got one more, which is the cutoff here, B100K, okay. So I've now got the chickens going off, and the lawnmower again. He cut the lawn all day yesterday. Or was it the day before? Okay, so we're getting there. So this one is the 50K. This one goes in here. It's the emphasis knob. Then these are 1 mega ohm. There and there. Right, so that's the 8 of those. We then put the front panel over the top, and that fits beautifully. Da-di-da. Or does it? Not quite fit beautifully. Oh, because I've still got the nut on that one. Dipstick. Okay. There. Nice. Okay. Right, scroll back up again. So what I will do, if nobody minds, I'm just going to screw on a couple of these nuts, and that's going to hold the front panel on. Yeah, makes sense? Just lightly, one there, one over here, and that just holds it in place. Now, as I turn it over, I should be able to solder all of these bits, and that's going to be right and true and flat and all those sorts of things. Great. So I'll do that, and I'll see you afterwards. Right, that's those knobs on. Oh, I forgot the 4 switches I was supposed to put on. 4 switches. These must be their mini toggle switches. These go on here. So I'm going to need that front panel on again just to do these bits. So these have got 2 nuts and a kind of an orientation washer, bits and pieces. According to the photograph, it has none of those things, so I'm going to take all of those off for the moment, and those go there. Well, they push in quite nicely, I have to say. 4. Now again, I'm just going to put a washer and a nut down on that switch to hold it in place. Do I really need to do that? No, I don't know that I do, but I'll put another one of these on just so the front panel stays where it's supposed to, because it's going to be sitting on those when I turn it over, isn't it? Which I don't like. See, this has interrupted my whole doing everything in the right order of size kind of thing, which I like to promote, because these are going to be sticking up. So maybe I can use something underneath so they're not hitting on the ground. I'm not sure that that's going to work. But if I put it down, no, it's going to balance all right. It's going to balance all right. Maybe that will help keep those in a little bit. All right, let's go with it. Go with it. Just these switches to put in. These are quite thick, and so they might require a little bit of heating before you can apply the solder. Alright, front panel off again. Now we're talking about the sockets. Now these are the sockets, not IC sockets, these sorts of sockets. These are the ones. Place all the sockets on the PCB, making sure ground tabs line up with the PCB's ground tab. Okay. Then place a panel over them again and solder. Don't forget the ground sockets to the PCB using cutoff resistor legs. Don't forget to ground the sockets to the PCB. Really? What do you mean? I've never heard that before. Right, okay. Let's see if we can work this out. Now, my understanding of these sorts of sockets is that this here is the ground leg, this one here. So, they already have one. Are they supposed to not have one? You have a look. Okay, so the socket that they've linked to here has the earth bit just sticking out the side rather than actually having it with something useful with which to solder it. I don't quite understand why you would ever try to use those sorts of sockets when you need something that's going to go in the board, and the board has a place for it. So slightly weird. I'm going to just use the socket that we have before us, because these go on here. Do you see there's that line there? You put that in first and then it just sits in there, and then I solder that, and that's the earth. No resistor legs required. So I'm gonna go with that. I believe that's how it should be, and SynthCube have provided the sort of patch sockets that would be normal and really what we need. Good. Right, okay, right, having taken the lid off, you can see that they're not exactly straight. Every time I soldered one, it moved a little bit. I poked at it, but but they were all soldered in while the panel was on, therefore they must be right. Of course they're right. Yeah, see, that's fine. They're just a little bit wonky underneath. Is anyone going to mind? Oh, I don't think so. That's just quite funny. Yeah, right. Lovely. Okay, next bit is these other pots now. Plastic. There should be 9. 5. 4. I've got 11. No, I haven't. I've got 13. No, what's that? That's an empty bag. Okay. So I've got B100Ks and A100Ks. B100Ks, 1, 2, 3, 4, A5, yeah, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the A100Ks. Okay, good. Go in there, I'll stick them all in, see you on the other side. Right, that's looking like a proper synth. Right. Oh my goodness. Cut 7 female headers to size and solder them in place. Make sure they stick out of the bottom of the PCB. See photo below. Cut 1 male header to size and solder it in place. Make sure it sticks out the bottom. So these here, all of these bits here, come out this side, because you can see the screen print. This is where it is, so they all need to come out this way. Now there's nothing on here to tell me which is male and which is female, so let's check out the photo. Where's the photo? Okay, there's a photo right at the end where we've got, get this right way up, oops, female, 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 all the way along here. Is it that is the only, that could be the only male one. Who knows at this point? Who knows? So we've got these here. And we're going to have to cut them to length. Let's hope that this is going to go well, because this is not my favourite thing by any stretch. God darn it. Right, so what you do is you get some kind of knife. I've got a blunt craft knife around here someplace. I might also introduce my old Stanley knife into this business. I don't know, we'll see. So the advice I got in a kit that I built yesterday, the Elmira from Neutral Labs, was that you kind of score it on both sides and then it should break. That sounded like a good idea, because before I've tried to snap it between things and that just seemed to go bad. So I'm going to just measure that up in there, so that goes to there, so I need to cut it down here. I made a mark enough on that. Yeah, I think so. That's definitely there. Now what you have to expect is that you will ruin the one in between. So you're going to lose one, probably, regardless, in the breaking. So you always need to have headers which are bigger than the ones you are trying to split it into. Okay. And take that to the other side. And with a bit of luck, that should snap. See, what's interesting about that is that it snapped on one side on the line. The other line I was running, no, it didn't snap. And then you get your tuning fork out the other side. So that wasn't quite right. But this should now be the right size for this. Yeah, with a little bit of overhang. And I don't mind a little bit of overhang, but I will see if I can just slice that down a little bit. With this, just to tidy it. Alright, maybe I should be using the Stanley knife the whole time. That's evidently sharper at the moment. Right, so that's one. Fits into there. So I need another one here. Now, am I going to have to calculate this before I start cutting other things up? I've got one which is there, this is now just one too long. Yeah, there and there. I've obviously got enough with that one. I think I've got plenty. I think they've given us plenty of this, so I should be alright. So I can cut this one down into whatever that's supposed to be. You know, there's probably proper tools for doing all this, I should think. Proper tools in that. So this is the third kit now I found where you have to fashion your own headers. In previous kits they've always been the right size. I mean, you kind of assume you create a PCB with headers that are at standard sizes, maybe? I don't know. But with these ones, no, you're having to make your own. It's a bit of a faff, but I guess it's a skill which if you're doing DIY synths and stuff, DIY electronics, it's a sort of skill which would be useful to cultivate. Yes, okay, so I've got another one here. Good. I think that is all the headers that they're talking about. These are the ones that I can see on the picture, but that's because they have this, which is the, I don't know, switch, no, octave switch assembly. That is, no, it's not like that, it's like that, or like that. Like that. So it has a header here. Now, I can't see by the picture whether it's male or female. And does it really matter? Is the question. It says solder the octave switch PCB to the motherboard PCB via the male header. Oh, right. So I think what they're saying is that this isn't going to be up at this height. This is going to be down, and you're just going to have a header go through here, a male header. One of these ones go through there, the bottom and the top. Which way round? Would it matter? Doesn't matter. Let me look at that other picture on page 8. Yeah, so that's what happens. So I need to put a male header in here, and then this just sits that way round. I don't know. This just sits over it and gets soldered in rather than being in a socket. I think that's right. I think that's right. So that's why I need the male header. Now with this, I should just be able to cut it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like so. And that goes in there. Which way up? Nobody knows. That way up. And then this fits over the top. Does it matter if it's sticky outy like that, or should it be the other way around? I'm going to go with that so that it's all level as I'm trying to do this. Right, so I've now got to solder these in while keeping it relatively flat. I could put this on here. That might be good. And then turn it over. Maybe I should be using tape. What does everybody think? Tape? Should I just try that? So let's tag where I can. Right, let's see if those are straight. Oh, I missed one. Damn it. I missed one. But the rest of those are not too shabby. Where was this one? Here. That'll do. Got a load of soldering to do. See you at the next bit. Smashing that. Smashing, lovely. So this is your front panel control, all the synthesizer bits on, and all the actual modules will fit on these headers behind. Great. I love this wobbliness. Well, I have to say it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you know, I've hit some problems in identifying components, which is not uncommon, I have to say. And then cutting the headers, which I'm definitely getting better at that. It's becoming less of a, oh my goodness, and more of a, right, okay, I can do this. I can do this now. So if it's your first time of cutting headers, don't fret. It's all right. Just take your time, you know, count how many things there are, and then start cutting. It's all right. It's not a bad thing to do. So yeah, this is pretty good. I've really enjoyed putting this together so far. It's also different to start with the front panel. It's often the last thing you do is put the knobs on, whereas this has been sort of right at the beginning, so it feels like I've finished, when of course I haven't, not by a long way. So I think that'll do for the minute. I'm going to go and have something to eat, and I'll come back and see if I've got time to have a stab at the other one. So this has taken a couple of hours to get this bit done, with a little bit of faffing around, as I say, but otherwise a couple of hours to get this far, and I reckon probably the same again and it'll be done. See you in a minute. Right, the rotary switch, which is this little PCB here. This mounts onto the other one via the male header, as we talked about earlier. Right, what happens with this? Solder all the resistors. See note in BOM about matching 10k resistors. Okay, 10k 1% resistors. Let's have a look. So there should be 5 10k resistors which are of a higher quality. Let's hope I didn't accidentally use those before. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Something special that I hadn't spotted. Right, so there should be some special 10k resistors. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, 10k, 12 of those. Right, I get the terrible feeling that I might have used the 10ks before. No, hang on, there's some more 10ks. There's a 5, so maybe I hadn't. So maybe this is saved then. Right, these are the 10k 1%, 0.1%, 10k 1%. What? Right. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 10k 1% times 5. These are the 5 match resistors for the octave switch. They don't have to be 10k exactly, they just have to be matched to each other. Grab a bunch of 10k resistors, measure each one, make little piles. Should only take 5 minutes. What? But I've got a 10k pack times 12, which are the 1% ones, and I've got a 10k pack times 5, which are 0.1. So what I'm going to assume from this, because I don't really know, is that what SynthCube have done, they've put 5 together which are within 0.1% of each other. So these are the high powered resistors. However, looking at the bands, these are identical. So either they've measured these 5, put them together in a strip specially and put them in that bag. I'm not sure. I mean, I can make the assumption that these 5 are the ones that I want, but why don't I measure them just to be sure? Because I don't really know. I don't really know. So it says measure each one, make little piles of 10k. Before long you'll have 5 resistors and that's your match set. So I just want some which are totally matched. Okay, that's simple enough. Okay, 9.97, 9.98, 9.97. Nine 9.97, 9.95, 0.96, 9.95. Right. So basically what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to ignore the fact that this is a pack of 5 and a pack of 12. I need to measure them all and see if I can find 5 that are the same. Right, so the reason for this is, as far as I think, is because you're using this as the octave switch and you need the resistors to be very, very similar so that the octaves are the same. Oh, I don't know whether that's actually true, but that seems to sound true to me as I say it out loud. So I'm going to go with that. So as all these have the same resistance, that should work. Right, that's the resistors. Let's solder those in. Good. Next up is an IC socket. It's another 4-pin one here. Nice and simple. So simple I can just turn it over just like that and just do it without having to think about it too hard. Then there's a trimmer, it says. 47K. No, is that referring to that or this? Trimmer. Okay. Got a couple of those. These sorts of things. Doo-ba-doo. Which one, I wonder? 47K trimmer. Yeah, it looks like those. Now the link it gives actually links to a 5K trimmer. Sub for 4K7. Look at that. It says on there, sub for 4K7. Okay. Cool. We found it. We found it. This goes, as far as I can tell, one particular way around, like that. It's got its own little feet. Does it just go on the feet? I don't suppose it goes in any further. Does it have to go in all the way? Oh, I think it stands on its legs. Let's see if I've got a picture of it again. Ooh! Well, that's interesting. In the picture, it's actually standing up and then pointing out, so that it sticks out of the side of the unit. Because if this is face up, then this is going to be over the top, octave switch, and the trimmer is going to be of no use whatsoever. Unless it's coming out at the fine. It's not coming out of there, is it? No, those are two other things which are already on it. So in order to access that trimmer, it's going to have to be at a right angle. Oh, that's the only picture I'm going to get. And also, it seems to be soldered into that middle bit, not the 3 around the outside. So, I'm going to bend these 2 pins down. So is that going to work? Maybe. This is going to go in here, and I'm going to want to, I guess, get access to that trimmer. But I can always take the top off. It's not the end of the world. But I think if that's there, I could potentially get a screwdriver to it. What do you think? And as I say, the image makes it look like that back leg is going through the middle, and those two are joined actually by here. So that's why that is. So let's get some load of solder over this. This I think is perhaps potentially going to be a little weak point. Need to get a load of solder in here so it gets it. Fabulous. Alright, did the trimmer then somehow, sort of. Then the rotary switch. Look at that fella. That's the thing, isn't it? The 12T rotary switch, which is what this is, 12 positions, needs to be adjusted to be a 6-position rotary switch. Remove the mounting nut and washer. Below them you'll find another washer which has a small flange. 90 degrees. I think it's referring to this one, which was actually loose in the bag. Okay. Is that a flange? Let's call that a flange. The inner part of the switch has a number of slots. Drop it into the slot marked 6. Oh, here. Oh, wow. So there's these tiny, you see these tiny holes here that do have writing on when you get it in the light, right? Now, that's 1, 2. Okay. So I need to place it so this drops into hole number 6. Yeah, look, see, it's only got 5 clicks now. Which means there's 6 positions because you start off in a position before the click. Mount the switch onto the panel, making sure the relevant pads pass through the male header of the pots and sockets PCB. What? I don't know what that means. Mount the rotary switch onto the panel. Yes, done that. Making sure the relevant pads also pass through the male headers of the pots and sockets PCB. Okay, but I can solder this first, yeah? Is that a problem? I don't know what it's trying to tell me. But this can certainly go on here. Now I do have a little bit of a problem in that... Alright, I'm going to make a decision. I think perhaps it's talking about this should be on here for when we're doing this. Let's give that a go, shall we? Let's have a look. So this is on. We want this to make sure that that's sorted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the nut on, because that seems to be what it's suggesting. We'll put that on there. See, that's all wonky, because that's wonky. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. Because at the moment that's bending. See this? It's bending out. Okay, rethink. Come on, use your brain. So let's put this on. Maybe that's going to be a factor. But I've got this bit here. This bit here is in the way. Now that's going to cause it. You see this knob here? That's going to cause it to play silly buggers. There's no place on here that that's supposed to sit into. So I think this needs to come off, because that is what's causing the difficulty. Like so. It is done. Now on the picture on there, it kind of looks a bit like it's been cut. I can't see it brilliantly, but I think it does look a little bit like that. Yeah, see, that's a lot straighter. So that's what that was all about. This is still a bit of a wonk, but I'm not too worried about that. As long as the pot is actually straight, I can solder this on here, because it's supposed to stay. It's not supposed to be something that is removable. So I think if that's at the right height, this is what you should be doing. You should have that front panel on, should have a nut down. I'm going to put another one of these on just over here, just to make sure that it doesn't twist. So then this is all good, it's all solid, it's in place, and I can solder all of these bits. Yes, I think that's it. I think I got it. I got it. Right, soldering. Right, that definitely seemed to work. That seemed to work. Keep dropping that bloody bit out every time I turn it around. Oh my goodness. So this goes where? Right, now I could leave the front panel on, except I haven't put the little ICs in. So let me do that. TL071. That's for the octave switch. Put it into my magic leg straightening tool. That pops in right there. Give it a squish. There's the nick on it. There's the little spot going to pin 1. That's in. So that panel looks completely complete to me. And with a bit of luck, I could actually put the cover on and leave it on. That might be amazing. Does it tell me to do that yet? No, I've just done all the mounting with that. Right, it's now going to move on to the VCO. So I will put that to one side for now. VCO then. Looks like this one. Solder all the resistors. So we've got a whole pack of resistors here, here, a lot in fact. So I'll get on with that and I'll see you on the other side. Well, that was super sloppy from my point of view. I didn't need to put all of those in. I put all of them in, right, and then soldered them. And this was just a forest of legs. Hard to see what I was doing. No, that's not really how you should do it. So I would recommend, you know, doing a strip and then soldering those, doing another strip, soldering those. Don't do the whole lot at once. That's just madness. Madness. Not going to get you anywhere. Inefficient, I would say. Right. What's next? IC sockets. IC sockets on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Make sure they're the right way round according to the silk screen and the knobble on the holder. That looks good. Is that an IC? It is. So one of these as well. Which one? The smaller of the two. Okay, stop. Stop. If you're about to install the 14-pin IC holder onto the VCO board, stop. Think. Just take a breath. Now, I made this mistake. I installed this right here thinking that was the right thing to do because it came in the kit, because it makes some sense. It's all on the silk screen and stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then when it came to actually putting the chip in it, I discovered that I didn't have the chip in this sort of size. I had it as a surface mount, little weeny one. Now, if you look closer on the screen print, you can see that, yeah, indeed, there's an IC holder on there, but there's also pads for a surface mount version. Now, the chip used on here, the CA3046, is actually in short supply, and so you may well find that the surface mount version has been supplied. So you need to find that out first. If it's a surface mount version and you install this, you're going to have to cut it off. Okay, got it? So just leave that off for now, and I'll get to this bit and you'll see the mistake that I made because I installed that IC holder and I had to cut it out. Tricky, tricky. So this is a note to prevent you from making that same mistake. All right, good. Now get on with it. Right, something that's not mentioned on the build guide is the diodes. So there's 3 diodes. You need to put the black line that's on the diode onto the line that's on the symbol. So this is the diode symbol here. That goes like that. I mean, the photograph of the board, the completed board, which is the most vital thing ever, is there, so you can see them and see where they are placed. So it shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, I'm going to solder all this together. Put this over the top in order to let me turn it over. And he blew it. He blew it. Yeah, he blew it. Right, try that again. Try that again. Come on. Then turn it over. Oh, and then don't nudge it. So they all fall off. Okay, good. That's on there. I'm going to solder all this stuff. Good. That's that all on. I'm really enjoying this deep level of soldering. Just lots and lots and lots of soldering. It's really satisfying to gradually put this thing together, because I'm building sort of 3 or 4 modules, the equivalent of, and that's the interesting thing about this, because it's lots of stuff and it's not just one big board, it's these individual boards. So I do get a sense of progression, a sense that I'm building something one after the other. And also it means you can do a board, and then go off and do something else and come back and you feel like you're not adrift, you're not lost within doing that. Right, so it says then all the non-electrolytic capacitors. So that's all the capacitors that don't have a positive or negative. What am I looking for? I guess I'm looking for these ones. This shaped capacitor. Now if the board's getting too crowded and you can't see the writing, then the one in the build guide is good. You can blow it up and you can see what's going on, and that is enormously helpful. So I want non-electrolytic. So these are the electrolytic ones, the sort of the classics. No, not that. Yeah, those ones. The classic sort of capacitors. Whereas the ones that we're after are the flat ones like this. Well, let's start at the top. Let's try to find 100 picofarad. There's 100 picofarad. There's one of those. Good, let's put that in. I think I would, on reflection, like to have it in list form. Because otherwise you're sort of randomly trying to find things and you're not quite sure where you've got to. I mean, you get there in the end because the board ends up being populated. So 2N2. So, okay, found myself a nice web page which is going to help with this. Capacitor values. So 2N2 is the same as 2200 picos. So that's 2200 picos. 2N2. So I've got one here that says 470F. But is that actually 470P? No, 470 pico. Ooh, now that's a bit troublesome. It's not going to fit between those resistors. What it might do, yeah, if I give it a little nudge. I don't know, I might have this all wrong. I might have it all wrong. See, there's another 600 pico. 570 pico. See, the one in the picture is they've got one of these little bubble ones. Like these. That's the one that they've got on the picture of the board. This is 0.1. And I've got a 22p here, which is this little blue one. And on the again in the photograph it's yellow. And these are these inconsistencies again as you get between what the build document's got and what the kit maker has done. Which is a bit of a thing, but there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Oh look, I've missed a resistor off. Oh my goodness. It's a 56k. How did I manage that? Alright, let's get all those squared away. Well, they're all in, as far as I know. It's looking okay. Looking alright. Yeah. Transistors, it says. Well, the transistors are these semicircles. I've got ones that are called P, ones that are called N. PN, PN. And I've got one that's properly labelled. I've got an F. What do they all mean? What do they all mean? So, right, I've got these two packets of here. I've got 557's PNP small, 547 NPN small. Now, my powers of deduction, because this has to work, right? These are the only two sets of transistors. There's a couple of other singles, but those I think are labelled on the board. Right, there's this one and this one. Those are fine, but this I've got 18 of those and 8 of these. Now I'm assuming that this NPN is what the N is on the board, but why don't you just put in the build instructions that N equals this and P equals that? I mean, why wouldn't you do that? I find that so frustrating, because I'm going to go with it. I'm going to assume that's right because that all seems to add up. But why should I have to flail around in the darkness? Why can't I know for sure? Anyway, these are P's, these are N's. That's my word on it. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going for. Let's see if I can work that out. One there. I guess just match it up to what it looks like would be good. Now this one here that looks like an F, I'm assuming that's a P. That it's just been cut off. Well, no, why should I assume that? No, I think that's different. I think that's different. I'm going to look at that again in a moment. There's another P. Because it could be a shaved off P, but it doesn't actually look like it. It looks definitely like like an F. An F for what? So, the 18s. So this is the ends. This I'm fairly sure of. N goes there, the right way around. N goes there. Just leaves me with this F. This also has the 78L09, which is this one here. And I've got this single JFET. Now I wonder if that's supposed to tell me something. That must be it. So this mystery one, this F, must refer to JFET. Another flippin' mystery. God, bloomin' heck. You're not making it easy for me, mate. Not making it easy. Now, I don't mind things being challenging because it's all learning. And if you're doing something DIY, then, you know, you should expect there to be challenges, perhaps, and that it's always going to be a learning experience, I suppose. But a little bit more help would be nice. Right, so unassuredly, unsure of myself, I'm going to put all those in. Okay, good. Now I have to put in all the trimmers. This is not getting any easier. All the stuff I've got knocking around. Right, more trimmers. I've got a whole different bunch. Now these ones are all going to go flat, thank goodness. Not having to do all that nightmare like I did before trying to put it around a corner. Oh, so this is the 50k. Yeah, 50k, right, 50k goes in there. Easy. 2Ks. Should they go closer? Should I push them? No, they can't go through any further. They can't. And then 1K. Right, trims. Power header. If you're using the box type, observe correct polarity. Right, this is the power header. See the polarity on here. That chunk here should tell us which way round this goes, which should be like that. Should be that simple. Yeah? So when we put our power cable in, it'll plug in there and the red stripe will be where this line is for -12. So that's good. Getting there, getting there. Electrolytic capacitors now, which are the traditional, the roundy ones. So for that I need some 47 microfarads, 47 micros. 47 micros. Look, that's easy. That's easy. It's actually labelled correctly, which is just, oh, amazing. So on these, long leg positive, short leg negative. There's the negative. They have to be the right way around. So on here, it's labelled with the positive. So long leg into the positive, like so. Simple. Positive, long leg into there. Now, finally, amongst all this mess, got to stick the male header on. So that's exciting. Now, I'm not entirely sure where this one goes. That must go in the middle there. But I've also got these two headers at the side. It won't be going like that. It'll be going like that, won't it? In which case, maybe it's going that way up. And then there's a bit of a header there. Does that fit on there? No, it doesn't seem to. Well, does it fit? Does it fit there? Might do. Oh, maybe it fits. Ah, look. See, that could fit there. That's got a whole load of pin sticking out. It's going to be hitting on that. Oh, I don't really know. That I think might be a worry. Is that going to be shorting everything out under there? Oh, mystery. Let's have a look. Then I'm probably going to need to cut all these off. Think that's a good idea? Should I just do it anyway? Maybe I'm supposed to have pummeled all these off. Well, I've bent them now. Maybe that's going to be enough. Maybe that's enough. No, it's not going to be enough. So there's elements of this that you're just going to have to work out on your own, I think. And I think cutting those off I really hope that I've not done it stupidly wrong. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Just cut all those tabs off. Shooting around your room. Don't need those on there. They must have been for some other thing. Right, so I think now that when this goes on here, I think this way up, I think that's not going to clash. I think that's going to be better. I think I've made it better. Yeah, definitely. That was a good idea. Right, good. This is starting to come together. I'm starting to take charge of my life. Now, for the male headers, I'm going to have to stick that in there. Now, the male header side of things is a little bit easier because they break much easier. Which is, I suppose, obviously, really, when you think about it. And I should just be able to cut it and that would work. So that goes there. I can put my tweezers in here. Like so. Beautiful, beautiful. That one goes in there. Now, using this, I can place it on all of those bits, hopefully. Just going to push that down. Ouch. Everything is spiky. Don't want to push down too hard. Oh, come on. Come on. Right. Okay, so that's all down. That's how that's going to end up being. So all I can do is solder along that because this bit is going to be face up. Otherwise I can't get to the trimmers, power supply. Everything else is that way round. So the male bit should be off the back of the board, like you see on this board. Components here, headers that side. Yeah. So all I've done is I've put the male headers into the female one so that they're lined up properly, and I've put the board on top. Now all I've got to do, solder, 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 and that's that module finished. Other than putting those in, which I'll do in a second. But for now, just going to do the soldering. That's looking pretty good. See, there's that clearance here now that I didn't have before, which is super. That seems to be all in place. No doubt I'll have to take it off again at some point, but at the moment I'm just going to leave it there in the hope that it can just stay there, so I don't have to keep bending, applying pressure to things. I think that's good, but it could come apart if it needs to. So that's the oscillator, except for the ICs, which I think would probably be a good idea to put those in while I'm here, and then that will feel like that's completely finished. This is one chunky thing, really is. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Right, what am I doing? Oh yeah, putting the ICs in. So these four are TL072s, which is what that is. Give it a little squeeze, make sure I get it the right way round. There's a little bit on it. There's a little bit on it. Oh, that goes in easy with the squashing. So yeah, maybe I should have put these in before I put the thing together. Well, no point worrying about it now. One more. Then I need, what do I need? I need 3046. Well, I don't have either of those. What does he have on his? His is called a CA3046. Right, so I'm missing something. PCBs also includes pads for the surface mount LM3046. Now, you know I said, right, I know I said that I'm not going to be taking this apart again. Well, guess what? I'm taking it apart again. All right, this is a huge thing that there's a chip here, an LM3046, not an LM3046, it's a CA3046. That's what's in the bill of materials. Now it says that they're quite tricky to get hold of, but there is an alternative which you can get. But it also says that you can get a surface mount version. Now I wasn't expecting there to be a surface mount version, but of course that's what we have. These. Oh my goodness. This surface mount version. So that means that this thing here should not be there. That's not supposed to be there. Instead, I should be putting these, or at least one of them, on the pads. Oh my lord. So that means this has got to come off. This has all got to come off. I mean, the only way really that you would have not done this, not put this in, would be if you've made one before. Because you know, I could have read through the instructions and read all those sorts of bits. But really I would have had to put the whole thing together to notice that that's what that was about. That's quite hard, man. That's quite hard. It's quite hard. So I'm going to have to solder sucker all of that off there to work out what's underneath. I thought that looked odd. That looked odd, that particular bit. Oh, crikey. Well, this is what we're here for. This is it. So, solder sucker, and just go to town. This, I think, is going to be difficult, but let's give it a go. How am I really going to take that out? Really? But I could cut it. I could snip it. Because I'm not going to move it, am I? There's no way I'm moving that off there. So if I was to cut it, how possible would that be? And I can see the pads for the surface mount, so that's not a problem. There you go, I've done it now. Oh, gee whiz, that hit me straight in the eye, straight in the face. Crikey. Alright, that's off. Now, is there supposed to be two of these, did they say? So there's going to be another one on what? The LFO? There. Okay, there's another one on that one. Right, I'm going to turn the fan off so it doesn't blow the thing away. Now I'm going to assume that this is pin number 1, which needs to go at the top end because that's where the nick is. That's what I'm going to assume. And to do this, I'm going to stick some solder on one of these pads. Get my tweezers and attempt to put this on here. Magnifiers are good for this. I wasn't expecting to do this, I was expecting just to put it together and go to bed. And I probably should do that, but I'm going to give it a go. So just relax, get comfortable, and that's it, twang it, why don't you? Clean the end of your, what's it? Right, well that's on, would you believe? That's on. So I put solder on a pad, I then heated the pad up, presented the surface mount chip, and now I just have to put some solder on other places. So heat up the pad that the leg's on, give it a tiny blob of solder, and hopefully that will run. Hopefully that is a surface mounted IC. Wow. I might have got away with it. I'm not going to know until I turn the thing on. Gee whiz, I was not expecting that. I mean, I saw these in the bag, and I did not twig because I looked at them and they said transistor. And I thought, oh, okay, that's not important then. It's just a little transistor I'll be putting somewhere. I didn't think that this is going to be a replacement for a big IC. That did not occur to me. Well, this project continues to surprise, you could say. But that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing the video. This is why I'm here, fighting my way through this, to try to help other people, to make the build easier for other people, to get through the flipping tricky bits. Because, I mean, it's a sizable project. It's a synthesizer. It's like a piano but with electricals, so it says on the back. Well, there we go. I think that's probably a good place to stop. Lovely. So, great. That's the oscillator done. I'm now on to the filter board and the envelope board, and we'll be there. But that's for another day, I feel, at this point. Well, it is fascinating. I mean, this is really, it's a challenge because there's information that's not always there or as deep or as helpful as it should be. So I'm having to really think. I'm having to identify things, having to go through stuff. And that's not a disaster. There's no reason why every kit should be taking you by the hand, resistor after resistor. You know, this is building DIY synthesizers. So here I am, next day. Got my VCO done with that bloody surface mount stuck in there. Yeah, ace, great. So that then can sit on the board and I can feel fairly confident that that's now done and complete. All the chips are in and I shouldn't have to take that off again. Well, at least At least I'd like to think not. Right, on to the VCF and VCA, which is this board. It says Raging Bull 3.0 at the top. Don't know what that's about. Who knows? So this is a whole bunch of resistors. It reminds us not to mix up some which are like 2K2 and 2M2. But you've got a nice long line of resistors here and resistors there. This, as it goes, looks straightforward. We also have another bit of surface mount here, which we'll get to. Maybe I'll do that first, so that everything else is out of the way. I think that's a good idea. And that way we can go over it again. I mean, I went over it last night when I had to do it for the VCO, but let's do it again right now to see whether we can just ace it. Yeah? Right, for this, I'm going to bring the camera in, nice and close. So we're looking at these pads, and we're looking at this tiny weeny little LM3046 IC. There it is. Pair of pliers is no. Pair of tweezers is useful at this point. And then trying to just make a fuss of yourself. Right. Now, as far as pin 1 goes, we can see on the screen print that if we were putting in an IC holder, it would go with the orientation that way, with the little nick that way. There's also a tiny little 1 there, which is probably an indication. And my assumption that I'm making is that this line at the top is what points to this end, this point 1. That is always the way, that the indication on the chip is to pin 1. So we're going to place this like that, somewhere in between the two. Now the idea is that I'm going to put some solder on here. I'm then going to place it into the solder and then solder all the way around. Now to do this, I'm going to need some goggles on so that I can see what I'm doing. Got my soldering iron. So I'm going to start off simply by putting solder on that pad. So soldering iron on the pad, heating it up, give it a little bit of solder. Doesn't need much, little bits of solder, because our soldering iron is probably too big, our solder is probably too big, just little bits, little dabs. Now what I'm going to do, I probably could have done this the other way around, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to change hands. That's really good, great. So I'm going to grab hold of my chip. I'm going to set it where it needs to be. I don't want it to lift up if I can help it. So I'm going to put my soldering iron on the pad to heat that up. I'm going to push the chip into it, and when it's about in the middle, I'm going to let go. That should be there. That's not too bad. That looks on to me. Then to put the rest of the solder on, go to the opposite corner, heat the pad. Now I know there's not much room here. So you heat the pad, hopefully that's heating the leg, and you just drop some solder in the top there. And of course it's going to be going on the iron, but it's this thing that when you slide the iron away, it tends to leave the solder behind, doing exactly what you want it to do. It's probably impossible to know whether that's actually worked or not, but we're going to say that it has, all right? I'm going to say that it's worked, and we're going to try the other side. So there, yeah. That is what we're after. Got it? Good. Right. So now that that's out of the way, so everything else on here looks pretty straightforward. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to crack on with the resistors, the IC holders, you know, the remaining IC holders, the capacitors, as in the non-electrolytic capacitors, so the ones that don't have an orientation. And we'll stop there, and then we'll have a quick look, and then do the transistors and the larger capacitors and anything else, and the trimmers, anything else that needs to go on there. Yeah? So I'll see you at the end of that session. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Got all that in. All those resistors, the IC holders. Oh, goodness me. Goodness me. Now, this IC holder here, right? This is just me all over today. It's the wrong way round. Should be the other way round. See, the nick is there. It should respond to the nick there. Now, I've got to be careful. I've got to make sure I put that the right way round, because I'm not going to desolder this. I'm not. It's too hard to desolder all of that to try to get that out to turn it round. I can't do it. I mean, I already did it with this one here to remove it, and you've seen the state of it. You've seen what happened. That's not coming out easily or nicely. You just have to destroy it, because you can't heat up all of those legs in order to pull it out. So you're going to have to chop it up and then pull it out. And I don't have any more of these, so I'm going to leave it. It makes no difference. It's purely the orientation of the IC that goes in it, and that nick gives you an indication so that you get it right. So that should line up with the bit on the board. It doesn't. I've just got to remember that that is there. Make sure I get it the right way round. Oh dear. Otherwise, this big fat thing here is a bit close to this, but I think I've had to sort of bend that resistor over in order to get that in. There should be enough room for me to get those transistor legs in there. So where are we now? I guess we do the transistors first, because they're going to be lower down, and then we do the electrolytic capacitors. Or maybe first of all the transistors, you know, our N and P transistors that we talked about before. Then the trimmers, which are not mentioned in the build guide again, so the trimmers need to go on. Then the capacitors. Now this does have a space for a power socket here, but we don't need one because it's going to be powered by the rest of the board. This would be if you were building this as a single module all by itself. So I'm going to solder all those bits, and I'll see you when that's complete. Right, lovely. All done. Certainly getting there. Now I think what I'm going to do is put the ICs in while I'm still remembering. Using my magic tool, squash the legs, and then put this, make sure you got it the right way round. That one in. Now the one that goes in here is the LM3700. So I've got two of these left. So it's that one. Yeah. So I'm going to put this in my thing, give it a squeeze. Now, as I said, I put my IC holder in the wrong way round. So the screen print, pin 1 is that way. So this needs to go with its nick that way. There. Cool. Nothing could possibly go wrong with any of that. Other than that, it's all together. I've now got to do the thing with the headers in order to get it to mount onto the main board, and for that to all work and route through itself and stuff. So, I've put that in there. All I've got to do is mark that and cut that off about there. That one there. Easy peasy. There you go, that fits there. This one, that needs to lose 2 off the end. 1, 2. Great. So in order to fit this in, I'm going to put the male headers into the female ones, the pointy ones into the socket ones, and see if I can get this round the right way. Is there any way of knowing which way round it's supposed to go? I guess. Well, let's have a look. There must be a picture on here. And I'm sorry if the light's going up and down. It's like my lights are on their last legs. They'll make it, I think. So, no, that's not a picture of it. I need a picture of it all together. No, I'm not going to get one of those by the looks of things. So, I'm just going to make the bold assumption that it's going to go, you see the writing? The writing is going to be in the same orientation. That has to be right, doesn't it? It has to be. So I'm going to place this in here. I mean, obviously I'll be able to take it out and reverse it if it's all wrong, assuming it doesn't blow things up when you do that. Ooh, like that. Without hurting my fingers. And like that. And I will solder all of that in. Good, it's in place. I'm hoping not having to take it out again is my plan at this point. Not quite sure what happens when I get to testing. I mean, I'm used to testing single modules, but this is a lot of modules. It's a lot of modules. A lot of things can possibly go wrong, can be shorted, can be just badly soldered, backwards, upside down, in the wrong place. There's a lot of room for trouble in this. But that's also why it's quite exciting. I mean, it's an awesome, flipping awesome thing. And I'm now getting quite excited to the point that I want to try it out. I want to know what it sounds like. Finally, on with the little one, the envelope. And I think there's a LFO on here, or noise, or something. I don't know. This is the little one that's left. Hopefully, I have enough components to fill it up. And of course, I am now missing an IC holder for the IC. So I'm going to have to solder the IC directly to the board, which is, you know, it's something you can do. You don't have to have IC holders. It just makes it easier, obviously, to replace it if something goes horribly wrong. So I'm just going to have to go with it because I don't have an alternative. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to get on with it. So I will stick in all the resistors. There's also some diodes on here. I'll put those in as well, I think. Then I'll come back and we'll do the IC together. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Right, in the flickering light of my dying LED lamps, we're going to do the IC. So that's the resistors and the diodes on there. Looking good. This is what I have to put on now. I'm going to straighten her up in here. Now, IC holders are a really good idea because you can blow chips and then it makes it easy to replace. The moment that I solder this in here makes it very difficult to replace. Very difficult. I mean, I've had the experience of trying to remove this, trying to desolder and remove it, and it was hard. And so I ended up destroying it. So if this goes wrong, I guess I'm just going to have to cut all the pins and pull it out because there's no real way of removing enough solder to be able to just lift it out. So make sure it's the right way round. Absolutely, it's the right way round. See the nick there, nick on the front. Stick that in. I'm just going to have to solder it. I can't see any other way. It's a TL0B4. Yeah, that's what this is. It's the right one. Ho hum, let's just jam it in there. Flipping light. Come on, just hold it in there a little bit longer. You do opposite corners. And then with my cavalier attitude, just going to go steaming along. I don't want to leave the iron on any of the legs for too long, because I don't want to risk overheating the IC. Which is another reason why you use IC holders. But that should be it. It's in. I mean, one thought is that because this is a modular synthesizer built into a single voice, that if this bit doesn't work, the rest of it still should. So even if I've broken this bit, I've still got half a synthesizer. Well, you know, the most of the interesting bits of the synthesizer, because this is, what, the envelope? Who needs envelopes? So there's just capacitors and those transistors left, and then we'll put the headers in, and then we'll be pretty much there. There we go. Just got to put the headers on. One point that I don't know how important this is this capacitor here. According to the build document, it's supposed to be one of those square ones, like this. Yeah, one of the square ones. And similarly, in the picture of this bit here, it's this big chunky square one, whereas what we've got is a regular looking one. Now it's supposed to be a bipolar. Bipolar is what it says. Is that the right one? I had this here somewhere. Here we go. Or non-polar. Oh, I don't know. What did it say it was supposed to be? Yeah. It says 1 microfarad bipolar. This says 1 microfarad non-polar. So I don't know whether that's right. And I don't know what that's for. Something to do with the noise circuit. Although funnily enough, on the little green casing here, I mean it doesn't appear to have any polarity. It had one leg longer than the other, but there's nothing marked on here. But it does have BP written on, as if to suggest bipolar. I don't know. So that's an inconsistency between the build guide and the kit. Is that a problem? I have no clue. We're just going to have to try it out and see. The other thing is that I have one 56,000 picofarad left. On the VCO here, I've got this one. As opposed to this one. And on their picture, they've also got a blocky one. There. So I'm going to assume that that's a duplication. So let's put them in here like before. Spiky ones into sockety ones. Orientation, whoa, who knows? Let's follow through on following the direction of the writing. See if I can squeeze those down. Ouch. And it honestly should be ready to play. Should be. I don't know. So all this is going to run off a single power? Flipping it. Right. I don't know. Now, the only thing I do have left over is an LED. It's not labelled. So this must go somewhere. LEDs are enormously helpful. And look, there, see? Oh, I completely failed. Completely failed. Right, so to get under there, this one I think is going to have to come off. That's okay. They're supposed to come off. Now, the LED is not labelled. There's no positive or negative sign, but it does have a circle and a flat line. Now, my understanding is that that convention means that the bit of the broken circle, the flattened circle, is the cathode, which is the negative. I think I got that right. And if we're going for long leg positive, as is the same with everything else, then the cathode must be the short leg. So the short leg should go like that. Yeah? Now, in order to actually get this to work, I'm going to need to put the front panel on. And then what I want is to get the LED into that hole. Like that, you see. There. Nice. Sticking out. I think sticking out's appropriate with this sort of stuff. It's one chunky thing. It's really one chunky thing. Right. Right. Moments of truth then. I've got this this little case here with my Mother 32 in it, which is works like this. So we know we can get sound out. So what I've got to do is plug this in to here, turn it on, and hope that it doesn't smoke. That's the first test. So, ready? Goodness, ready? Let's give it a go. Everything is going to blow up. Oh, okay. Right, looking for smoke. And nothing bad has happened so far. Now the LED here doesn't appear to be on, which is probably not a good sign. But I could have that backwards. Who knows? Who knows the nature of the problem in here? Could be all sorts of things. We know nothing at this point. Nothing at all. Now I could sit this back, identify a musical output, so it's this way up currently. These three here should be VCO outputs. Alright, there's something. There's something else. Right. Well, it's clearly not working at this point. Not working fully. But everything's a little bit mysterious. So I'm going to put the front panel on, plug it in, and then see if there are any elements in it which are functioning correctly. That seems like a plan. Let's do that. So I've had a little bit of success in that I've now routed the output of the Mother 32 into the filter here, into this filter bit here. If I turn this into a drone again, so this is not the sound of the VCO, this is the sound of the Mother 32. I can turn it up there and I can do like filter stuff. Put it on gate mode, take the gate out from the keyboard on the Mother 32. That works. So does the envelope. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the filter, amplifier, ADSR, that side of things is working. The difficulty I'm having at the moment is with the VCO. So I'm going to have a look through all of that. Of course, this is where I had problems with that IC that I had to remove. I had problems with the trimmer on the octave switch. So I don't know at this point. But at the moment, all I'm getting is a strange farty sound. So I would have to look into that. And we're back. A little while later, we had a spot of bother. But it's all right now, and I'm here to show you exactly what it is that got it all working, how to calibrate it, and what all that kind of thing means. Because at the moment, we've got this. Which is the sort of thing you want from something like this. So where were we? So before, we're having a problem, we're only getting like a wobble coming out of the VCO. And so it was at that point that I kind of had to put my tools down and think, I don't really know what I'm doing, gonna have to think about it. And also I've got other things going on that I need to get sorted out. And so it's sort of been on the back burner for a month, maybe two. But now we're back, and I've forged my way through it in the last day or two with Rick's help from Frequency Central, who's been enormously helpful over this in just kind of, I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of know what it is that you have to do, but you can't quite formulate it, can't quite pull it out of the air or admit to yourself that perhaps it is ultimately all your own fault. Because when troubleshooting stuff like this, it is almost inevitably going to be your fault. Now, there's always that slim possibility that there's something broken, like I had on the sample slicer. You know, it's a good example. It wasn't my fault. It was some kind of raised pad on one of the ICs that had already been surface mounted to the board. But that was a different thing. The majority of cases, it's going to be your fault. So what you have to do is go back through things, go back through boards, reflow solder. What does that mean? Well, I don't know exactly, but my interpretation of that is that you heat up the leg again until you see the solder bubble or the flux bubble away, and then you perhaps give it a little bit more solder and just watch to see that solder change shape so that you know that it's gone up the leg or gone in the hole or shifted, just to ensure that it really is on the leg and making contact with the pad. That, to me, is what reflowing solder kind of means. You can also take solder off, put solder back on, take components out, put them back in. Things like that. Because it is going to be your soldering at the end of the day, which is going to be the cause of the problem. So, when I've spent the last day or so getting this working, I discovered that the drone out wasn't working, the noise out wasn't working, let alone the oscillator. So there were lots of bits and pieces, and all of them have been fixed by me resoldering and reflowing that solder. That is just the way of things. I'm thinking perhaps I need to put more solder on in the first place. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to solve that. It's just one of those things. It is just one of those things, and you have to go back through it, and you have to resolder. And then, more likely, it's going to work. So, let me show you what I did then. Let's turn this fella off, bring this out, because the calibration bit at the end is tricky, and it's had me scratching my head a little bit, and I imagine it'll have you scratching your head too. I don't know. But, by the by, let's see where we get to, shall we? Well, the first thing I should do is tell you how I fixed the oscillator problem. Now, it was all down to the trimmer inside here. I mean, do you remember the trouble I had with that trimmer? It wasn't at right angles. It's supposed to be a right angle one, and it was a flat one, and I tried bending it up, and that didn't seem to work. And although it appeared to solder okay, but I then took that out and straightened it up, put it in flat, and then I finally got proper pictures coming out of the oscillator. So it was down to that trimmer. That was the problem. Now I can't access this anymore because I've got the front panel on, and I ain't taking this off again. No way. So you're just going to have to sort of believe me when I say what it is you have to do with that, because your first port of call, well, there's two ports of call, there's two test points, but the one that was relevant to this is on the little board, is on the rotary switch board. It's at the side here. It says test point 2. And all you do is put a multimeter on there and check that it reads 7.5. If it doesn't read 7.5 volts, you turn that trimmer a little bit, which I can't access anymore, in order to achieve it. But I will show you what that looks like. I think I'm going to bring you in for this. We'll get a bit closer so you can see exactly what's going on. Okay, multimeter. This is something you're going to need at this point. First bit of the calibration is the two test points. You need to test the voltages at these 2 points and adjust 2 trimmers to make sure that they are. Now the first one is on the back. It's called test point 1, and it's supposed to be 0.63 volts. Now in order to test something, use your multimeter, set it to direct voltage. I take the black cable and I attach it to the shielding on a patch cable and plug that in to any available hole. That then ensures that that is attached to earth and I'm not having to worry about that one. So on this side, test point 1 is over here next to these trimmers, and the trimmer which affects this is the one called heat. So we turn that on. Mind you're not touching anything. Take the probe, stick it into there. That should give you 0.63. You see that on the meter? Yeah? And if it isn't, then you adjust with a little screwdriver the heat knob until it reads 0.63. Got that? Okay, the second one is our one on the rotary switch, which is to the side, the edge here. Now I can no longer access the trimmer because I've already set this up. But you do exactly the same thing. You put the probe into there. It should read 7.5. And if it doesn't, you just adjust the little trimmer that's inside here that you should be able to access if yours is the right one until it says 7.5. For that, the octave switch here has to be all the way around clockwise, all the way up to the highest bit. Then that should read 7.5 volts. Good. The next point of the calibration is the triangle. So take the triangle output here, plug it into a scope, assuming you have a scope. If you don't have a scope, you can kind of use your ears, I suppose. This is just making sure that the triangle waveform is set right, because it can lean a little bit one way or the other. So to do this, you are going to need access to the triangle pot, which is here. So I turn this on, you should be able to hear and see on my tool here the triangle waveform. So if I turn this one, triangle, you should watch that straggly line there. that changes. And you want that dead in the middle where it's going to give you the least amount of noise. Good. That's that bit. The next one is the square wave. So take the pulse output, take the pulse width all the way around to the left, and also make sure that you turn down the LFO on it all the way down to the left. Turn them all down just to make sure. At that point you should get a nice square wave coming through. As you turn the pulse width knob, you should push that until it becomes a pulse. Now that might be slightly offset, so you have a trimmer on the back called Duty, and as you turn that, that'll set where you want it to be. So actually in the middle is pretty good. You can start to hear the harmonics come in. Just want it to be as flat as possible so that you get the fullest range when you actually turn the pulse width knob. Good. Right, on to probably the most important thing, which is the pitch tracking. This is the oscillator's ability to track 1 volt per octave, which, I mean, normally speaking, apparently once you've built the thing, it should more or less be there, but a little bit of adjustment might be required. I found a lot of adjustment was required. Now the place that you do it is here on this trimmer knob called Scale. And what you need to do is to set up some way of doing an octave. So I'm going to do it from my Mother 32 keyboard here, and compare those two and adjust it in order to bring those two frequencies to within an octave of each other. So that sounds easy enough. So what we'll do, we'll use the O tool here as a tuner. It has a tuner option, and I'll plug this back in so we can hear it. And I'm going to use the keyboard on the Mother 32 in order to scale up and down. So as you can hear, it's not entirely right. So what you do is you use the scale knob here and you turn it a little bit, and that should, see, that sounds better. So I've got F3 and F2 in about the same place, so that sounds pretty good to me. But you might want to then go up another octave and see if that's still holding it in place. I've now got F4 up here. Yeah, F3, that's looking pretty good. Let's go up again. So that is not far off. I'm really quite pleased with that, because I'd messed this about something rotten. But when I first started to calibrate the pitch on this, it was all over the place. The octave knob here wasn't doing an octave at all, it's doing like an octave and a half. And so in talking to Rick at Frequency Central, he actually instructed me to add another resistor. Let me show you where I mean. Because the problem was that no matter how much I turned the scale knob here, the scale trimmer, it wasn't bringing them close enough together. I was still about half a semitone out, which just, you know, is not quite right. So what we did is that we added a resistor here on the back, on top of what is an 18k resistor here. Now you may notice on the board itself, the 18k resistor, this one, has a little asterisk next to it. And that apparently is to indicate that this might need some tweaking. The asterisk is also on the back, so you can see exactly where it is you want to put it. Now, Rick said I should use a 200k resistor. I didn't have any, so I've used a 220k resistor. And what that does is brings down the resistance and gives the scale trimmer a wider range to enable to bring it back down again. So why do we have to do this? Why is it not just working? Well, I mean, really because it's an analog synthesizer, and all of the parts within it are analog and have certain tolerances and expectations and accuracies or inaccuracies, and sometimes the combination of those will result in something just being a little bit out of whack at the other end. So adding that resistor just widens the range and allows us to reel it in to make it work. The other advice Rick gave me was that you can do it in hertz rather than trying to do it in octaves or in notes. You can do it in hertz. So if I dial it in using the fine tune to 100 hertz, then when I go up an octave it should go to 200 hertz. Go to 19980, not far off, and so I adjust the trim to put it to 200 hertz. Then I go up another octave, which will be to 400 hertz, and I check that and adjust it to go 400 hertz. Then 800, and then when I'm at the top I come all the way back down to the bottom again, start at 100 again, because that would have then shifted. And gradually, using time and patience and a methodical approach, you will get it more and more accurate on every pass. So that's the plan. It's not easy. It takes time, it takes concentration, and it has frustrated me a great deal. However, I think I'm there now, and I think I'm more or less happy to accept it on what it is. Now there are two other trimmers there. There's a frequency trimmer which allows you to essentially do the same as fine tuning. And there's also this Lin trimmer. Now this is something to do with this being based on a Roland design. And there's something to do with that in calibration. But it says in the build guide that you don't really need to use it. You shouldn't need to use it. It should be fine. But it's there if you want to go into absolute detail. So I haven't really messed with that. Last couple of things to do are to do with the filter and the amplifier. Now there's a VCA inside here, this bit at the end, and that can also be calibrated with something I don't fully understand, but I'll give it a go. So it says you put both switches to the up and you take the output of the ADSR, so normal output there, into, it says CV3. I mean, there's no explanation as to what CV3 is, but my best deduction, I've decided that it's the envelope input here on the filter. CV1, CV2, CV3. It seems to make the most sense. And I'm taking the envelope out and putting it into the filter. That seems to make sense. And then there's a trimmer on the back for VCA, which should give you a nice sort of clean envelope without any what they call a DC thump. Now to make that happen, we're going to need to put a bit of a gate in. So I'm going to take the gate out of the Mother 32, plug that into the gate on the envelope, and to make this work I need to use this as a synth voice now, because so far I've been taking it purely straight out of the oscillator. Now I need to take it out of the audio out. Who would have believed it? So the sound actually travels from the oscillator internally through the filter and then to the VCA at the side. It says they want a nice snappy ADSR. There's a VCA trimmer on the back here, which if I turn all the way over one side and then put back to the middle, you kind of notice absolutely no difference whatsoever. So I'm not sure what that's about, but hey, leave it in the middle and I think it's all probably fine. Next up is the 1 volt per octave tuning of the self-oscillation. To do this, put it into drone mode, turn off or turn down all the other oscillators, which you do here, put the emphasis all the way up to the top, and that is now the self-oscillating resonance. Now the 1 volt per octave input also tracks directly, or is normal to, the filter cutoff here, and all you got to do is turn it up. And again, you do the same things you did on the other oscillator. So I've got C5, C sharp 6, then I go to the scale trimmer on here, which is this one, and I try to get that to be the same. So C5, C6, not far off. Brilliant, that'll do. Another one you've got is the setting the range of the cutoff. So if we turn something else up again, you can set when it becomes fully open. So you put it fully open, and then you can set that point using the frequency dial here. And about in the middle is about right. You can also set where you want the self-oscillation to happen on the resonance as well. But again, those are all more or less set about to the middle. It's only really the scaling that needs a little bit of adjustment. And that is how you calibrate the thing. Right, now we need to just do a quick demo, and I think we're done. A quick demo of the product then. Frequency Central product. You have an oscillator here. Sawtooth triangle pulse wave outputs. You can use this completely by itself, just as an oscillator. You've got the pitch in, you've got FM in, you've got hard and soft sync, pulse width modulation. But this is normal through this, which is the filter. You've got 3 inputs. Each waveform goes into the filter with its own volume control, cutoff, resonance. At the bottom you've got 3 modulation inputs, 1 to control the cutoff, 1 as an LFO, either internally or externally, and envelope, again internally or externally, and you can turn them up to make them effect. So you can have the envelope and the LFO and the pitch all going at the same time, because there's an LFO in here as well, you see. Then you have these knobs as an ADSR envelope, which again is normaled inside and acting on both the VCA, which is the output here, and on the filter if you so wish, and you can take out the regular output or an inverted output from here. On the VCA you can have it acting as a ADSR or just as a switch gate like on the Roland SH101, or you can have it as a drone, so no envelope at all. Main audio output here, there's an LFO stuck in here, which is just a slow moving thing, which is useful I suppose, and there's also a noise output just for fun, which you could patch into here, because if you put anything into these inputs it then bypasses this particular waveform from the oscillator, so you can add extra things in from it, which is just kind of interesting. Or you could double up if you like by taking an output here and put that one anyway, that does that sort of thing. I've put a little bit of reverb on. I'm going to be running the Super 16 sequencer into it, which I don't know much about yet, but I hope to at some point, and I'll just give you a couple of minutes of play, and then we'll wrap it all up by telling you what I think about the whole job. Epic. So what do we think? What do we think of this thing? I mean, what a build. What a huge build. I had no clue when it turned up in this little box that it would be quite such a mammoth undertaking. No idea. I mean, I guess when you break it down, you're building an entire synthesizer. Oscillators, filters, VCAs, envelopes, LFOs. It's all in there. And you're building it. And so it shouldn't really come as any surprise that it took quite a while to do, and that it was a bit fiddly and kind of, you know, meaty by the end of it. I mean, the build was brilliant. I thoroughly enjoyed putting it together. Mostly. I mean, the process of soldering, putting stuff together, finding the parts, putting it together, that puzzle slash kind of hobby slash engineering creative thing that you're doing is brilliant. It grabs you, it takes you, and off you go again, trying to put together something else which is going to revolutionize your musical and creative life, or at least add to your range of sound possibilities. And that's what that does. Now within the build, I mean, I've laid it all out in ridiculous amount of detail so you can see the pains that I went through, but they were small and occasional. I mean, they happened, and I'm not denying that at all. There was some frustration, there was some difficulty between what the very minimalist build guide gives you. I mean, there's enough there, don't get me wrong, there's enough there. The links to the pictures of the components are vital and useful. It's just that when they don't match what you get in the kit, it then starts to unravel in your head a little bit, and you're having to make decisions that you don't really have the qualifications to make. However, as I have encouraged a lot of newbies like myself into the world of DIY, I hopefully have shown you that it is possible just to think your way through it. I mean, throughout the build until the very end, I didn't go scampering off for help from anyone. It was only in the calibration where I just couldn't get it to work that I then reached out to Record Frequency Central. But up until that point, I just reasoned my way through it. I hope that came across. So even in the bits where I'm going, what, I don't know, what, you know, I can get through that. And if you're stuck, hopefully that will help you reason your way through it too. So it's not a piece of cake, this project. It's deeper than that, more meaty than that. I'm in an R in about whether I prefer the way this has the values of the resistors listed on the board as opposed to just a list of numbers and then a list in the build guide. There's something very comforting about having a list on a piece of paper that refers to a particular PCB so you can check it off as you go along. You don't really have that in Frequency Central builds. You have it all screen printed on the board, and so you're just finding that thing. So I had a little bit of trouble where I had all these bags of resistors and I didn't know which board they went on. I just had to do that as I went. So it was more difficult to catch problems along the way, if that makes sense. But it's just a different style. I'm kind of feeling that I've built this now and I've built the stasis leak, that Frequency Central are perhaps not the first kit she should be doing. I think they require a little bit more of you. I'm still learning, I'm still finding things out, and I'm still finding some of it, hard. It's a struggle, and certainly I wouldn't have used this as a first time project. No way. It would have been too intense, too difficult, and too much room for just stuffing it up. You want to do something nice and simple that you know is going to work, something from Music Thing or some of the smaller kits from Thonk. They are a much better bet than something of this size. So what's the product like as a product? Well, you heard it there. It's pretty flipping awesome, isn't it? I mean, it's a whole little modular system in itself. I mean, it works. It's kind of actually very much like the Mother 32. You've got your single oscillator, your filter, your envelope, your LFOs and bits and pieces. It is a little synth. I mean, it's a great starting point for a modular system because, look, it takes up less than half the size of the Mother 32. Doesn't have the sequencer, okay, doesn't have all the patching possibilities. But if you just want a modular voice, for instance, this would be brilliant with the Nifty case. If you've got yourself a Nifty bundle with the cells and the weird oscillator thing, This would be a great addition because it gives you a whole analog section, which is both self-contained and easy to patch in and out of. You can use it in different things. Everything has its own out, everything has its own in. Very, very interesting. And sound-wise, it sounds really meaty. I mean, I just had a bit of reverb going on, otherwise it was just this. At one point I did plug in the oscillator from Mother 32 just to mess with the FM and the sync inputs, but it has everything in there that you need to create good, fat, chunky sounds. Yeah, nice. Like that a lot. Great. Well, there you go. That was the Frequency Central product, built by yours truly in a matter of weeks. It only took me weeks and weeks and weeks. Hope that was useful to you. And if you've made it this far, well done. Congratulations. Now, pop over to Patreon and throw me a few dollars just, you know, just for the fun of it. And subscribe and do all that, and you'll see me again for more and more DIY projects. I've got a couple more Frequency Central modules coming along, some logic-based ones, which is interesting. And I did a stasis leak, which I did more or less as a live stream. You could see this as a sort of a 2 to 3 hour live stream, maybe. So do go and check those out. There's always more stuff coming in the meantime. Go and make some tunes.